Now you may be thinking, why a Dagath video? Well, because I felt like it, and I'm glad I did so. Dagath has been forgotten. The Hydroid rework has overshadowed Dagath since her release, and I feel like there is a small group of players who still appreciate how powerful this Warframe is. But I've discovered that Dagath is actually stupidly powerful with melees and is overall a great Warframe, especially with her augment. She does have one problem with her Phantom Wraith mechanic, which I will talk about at the end of the video. My aim for this video is to bring Dagath into light among the plethora of Warframes nowadays, and I will be discussing the 3 main playstyles with her. Let's not waste your time and let's dive straight into it. Dagath's passive is called Abundant Abyss. When picking up health or energy orbs, you have a 35% chance to increase the effectiveness by 300%. This passive has no cooldown and has a chance to activate on each orb collected, meaning a health orb that usually gives 50 health will now give you 200, and energy being 25 will now give you 100 energy if activated. This buff does not affect equilibrium at all, but the effect is multiplicative with the increased effectiveness bonus from Amber Archon Shards, Energizing Shot, Mending Shot, and Restorative Bond. Look, all in all, it's a nice passive, but it's a pity that we will still land up using Equilibrium since her third ability guarantees health orb drops, meaning Equilibrium just still outweighs this passive. Her first ability is called Wyrd. Send out 7 spinning sickles that will expand and apply viral damage on enemies hit. They are also slowed at a base of 35%, which scales with ability strength. This slow is capped at 95%, which is achievable with a whopping fat 272% ability strength. Fun fact, this ability also breaks crates and resource caches. There are a few things about this ability though that you need to take into account. These sickles will slowly rotate around you, and after 1 second they will be casted out. If enemies are hit by the swirling blades while they're swirling around you, it will apply more viral procs. Enemies that are hit by the blades when sent out are only applied 1 viral proc, so you basically get 1 viral proc per damage instance with this ability. Increasing ability range will actually increase the radius, allowing closer enemies to be affected more. Word size is a great way to slow and apply viral damage, and that's pretty much what it's used for, and this ability synergizes very well with her second, which is Doom. Doom is pretty much a curse that you send out in a 40-degree cone. These enemies will be cursed for 15 seconds, and doomed foes will be marked with 2 large crosses. Pretty easy to see, it's basically this blinding light at you with a cross. If you inflict damage via your weapons or abilities, the enemies will then be affected by Phantom Wrath. This summons a floating sickle above the target that will store 35% of every damage instance dealt by Dagath herself within a 2-second time frame. After the 2 seconds are up, the sickle will deal the stored damage as true damage to the enemies. This effect can be re-triggered repeatedly by just constantly re-damaging the enemies. With 286% strength, you will achieve 100% damage redirection as true damage, which is pretty powerful. You can only have 1 sickle at a time per enemy, and Phantom Wrath's stored damage is individual, not shared between all the affected targets. I wish it was shared, it would make Dagath absolutely insane, but it's not, it's individual. The lethal damage is increased with viral stacks, but not affected by other damage bonuses like Raw. Dagath's first ability actually aids Doom by re-triggering Phantom Wrath if these sickles hit the enemies, and it will also spread Doom's curse to other enemies that are not affected by Doom within a 15-meter radius at base. This will only work if Word Size will hit a already cursed enemy, so Word Size is essentially a Doom primer, and it will constantly refresh its timer as well on top of that. The problem with this ability is you kill enemies nowadays too quickly for this to even take effect. However, I will say that this redirection mechanic with Phantom Wrath is actually very good with super tough targets, but only useful with certain ones, because most of the time nowadays we're stuck with damage attenuation, which kind of doesn't really work as well. But anyway, we will go over that later on in the video. Doom actually ties into her third and fourth. Her third ability is called Grave Spirit. At base, Dagath will cast this ability indefinitely. While Grave Spirit is active, you gain a crit damage bonus to your weapons. Once Dagath suffers lethal damage, she will become a spirit that is immune to damage for 10 seconds. In this form, Dagath can still kill enemies, move around as normal, but what you get is 100% dodge chance, meaning you're technically invulnerable. Each kill will grant health orb drops from slain foes, guaranteed health orb drops. Once she returns to her main form, Grave Spirit will deactivate with a 25-second cooldown before it can be recasted. The crit damage stacks additively with crit damage mods, but with Grave Spirit active, hitting enemies affected by Doom will increase the crit damage by 100%, meaning you can get over 200% critical damage bonus against enemies that are affected by Doom while Grave Spirit is active. Spectral Spirit is her augment. Now this is insane. This augment allows you to activate the spectral form as if you were to get lethal damage and technically die, but here you can cast it at your own will essentially. With this augment in the spectral form, your weapons and abilities have a 100% chance to apply Doom when you damage an enemy. Kills outside of the spectral form decrease the cooldown by 1 second. This means you will lose the permanent base crit increase when you cast it before when you didn't have the augment. However, when you do cast this, you will have the inflated crit bonus that she gets in her spectral form. This augment is very nice. I personally use it a lot, but you don't have to use it. It is a personal preference. This augment does make you technically lose the panic button as if you were about to take lethal damage, but you are still invulnerable while this ability is active with the spectral form. Rakhali's Cavalrry is Dagath's 4th. Spend 100 energy and summon 5 horses that charge in a straight line. You will have a 1.5 second casting animation and Dagath will be invulnerable during this period. These Ks will charge forward, dealing viral damage, and a lot of damage at that. However, if the enemies are affected by Doom, her horses will permanently armor strip enemy and shield strip them. You will need 286 ability strength to fully armor strip with each hit. But the horses generally hit multiple times, so you can actually get away with less strength because they will be hitting multiple instances, so you generally do armor strip quite easy. Yeah, Dagath is very strength hungry, but I found out that you don't need to push her that much strength. It is nice to have it, I do, but you don't have to. The horses also actually just do a crap ton of damage and can nuke very well, as long as the enemies are doomed. And that covers all of the abilities. As always, if you could leave a like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel. Thank you so much. There are 3 main ways to play Dagath: a normal caster way, a gun runner way, and the melee way, which is the star of today's video. Within each playstyle, you can actually choose whether to use the augment or not. It is up to you, but before you make that decision, let's actually talk about why the Grave Spirit augment is that strong and why I'm suggesting that you actually use it. As we know, the augment voids the safety net of the instant death, but it forces you into the spectral form at your own discretion. Now, when you are in this form, that still means you get, let's say, 14 seconds of invulnerability depending on your ability duration, and any damage from your weapons or abilities will spread the Doom effect, the curse. This means Doom doesn't need to be casted that much because you've activated Grave Spirit, and because of this, your first ability and 4th and weapons will spread Doom, essentially. So you don't actually need to cast Doom all the time with this augment. It opens up so many synergy. Now, I'm sure many of you will say there's a problem with the cooldown, am I right? Well, it's a 25-second cooldown that will be reduced by 1 second every time you get a kill. The Scythes sorts the issue out, Melee Vortex sorts the issue out, Nautilus sorts this issue out, and Operator Arcane. Personally, the Scythes is perfect for this, but pulling enemies in allows this cooldown to be somewhat redundant, actually. Meaning, with Dagath, you are pretty much invulnerable all the time, almost all the time, and you are constantly spreading Doom and gaining the huge crit damage bonus. This also applies to your 4th ability, requiring Doom to do more damage and armor stripping, but because this augment is active when you cast your horses, they will immediately apply Doom as they're busy mowing the enemies down and immediately armor strip them and immediately kill them. And of course, because the augment allows this to happen, when you go on cooldown, your 4th ability is the perfect way to easily kill groups of enemies, drastically reducing the cooldown. And on top of all of these things about what makes this augment so great, it completely sorts out energy issues because you get guaranteed health orbs and equilibrium, so running negative efficiency is not a bad idea, and because you're going to be in this form so much, your energy sustain is not a problem. This is why I like this augment so much, and again, you can choose not to run it by all means, but I would recommend giving it a go. Now let's talk about how to play Dagath as a No Helminth setup. The cycle is pretty easy. Cast Doom on enemies followed by Wyrd size so that you can spread Doom to more enemies. Augment or no augment, cast Grave Spirit. That must always be up, no matter what you choose to do with the augment or not. And once enemies are primed with Doom, you can cast your 4th to nuke enemies, rinse and repeat. The main thing for Dagath's kit is to make sure every enemy is affected by doom, so all the other abilities benefit from the effects of it. If you would like to build a No Helminth Dagath, here is a budget build for the baby tenor. Really simple. You can switch out energy nexus and natural talent for other mods if you don't want them or if you don't have them. I understand these are just nice utility mods to use for her, but you can absolutely change it and switch it out. She is quite strength hungry, so you can push more strength if you can handle that. Then we move on to a Steelpath No Helminth build that will look like this. Very comfortable setup that is super tanky and offers 284% strength in total. Again, you can change out Augur Reach for stretch for more range. The build is flexible to what you want. This is just a very nice framework for both budget and also Steelpath, and will just make your Dagath experience so much better, because I can say she can be a little bit squishy if you don't know how to build her or if you have built her incorrect. Now let's talk about the caster build and how to play. For a No Helminth caster build, it's pretty straightforward. Dagath has very slow casting time, so you want casting speed shards. That is very important. You'll have decent enough energy sustain, you'll have decent enough range, and good strength since Dagath is very strength hungry. For this playstyle, we focus on the 4th nuking, so we want to cycle between Doom and 4th ability the whole time. If you're using the augment, you can keep your 3rd up as much as you want, since your 4th will then prime them Doom, and then you can just press 4 the whole time if you'd like. This is what the framework would look like. If you don't run the augment, you can run natural talent instead. The Helminth options can be Nourish, Raw, or No Helminth. I would suggest subsuming your 1 with Raw, and that way you can get the full caster experience, and that way you're not really using your weapons as much, you're just spamming your abilities like crazy. And then we have our Gun Runner build and how to play that version. The Gun Runner is pretty much the same as a No Helminth or caster playstyle. Here you subsume your 4th with Raw, Eclipse, or Zata, or any other ability to increase your damage overall when it comes to using your weapons. You want to use weapons that are very good with crit and make use of your 1, 2, and 3 to cycle between the effects. Ultimately, the Gun Runner setup is actually incredibly good with Dagath, since you gain upwards of 200% crit damage. And you slow enemies, you prime them with viral. It's the perfect setup for weapons. For Archon shards, either strength, casting speed, or duration shards, I would recommend that. This is the raw build, which can be swapped out for the Helminth options that I mentioned, and the framework is flexible. Red crit weapons will love this setup, or even just weapons that crit all the time, because of that huge crit damage bonus that you get from your 3rd ability. It's brilliant. Finally, let's move on to the star of today's video, the best way to play Dagath by far, and that is Dagath as a melee frame. I can just say this confidently, Dagath as a melee frame is absolutely slept on. I had no idea that she was that good until I got recommended a similar setup from someone from my Discord. Wrathful Advance gives us guaranteed red crits on melees. Grave Spirit will give us critical damage bonus that we can use with Spectral Spirit to get the huge damage bonus. And Spectral Spirit will also spread doom to enemies nearby. Run negative efficiency because it doesn't matter at all, since Spectral Spirit will sort out our energy regen entirely. Run 3 purple Towerfall shards or more if you'd like to increase your melee critical damage over 500 energy, and honestly, you get the nicest melee setup, offering you slowed down enemies, damage redirection, not that this really matters, over 250% critical damage with over 300% critical chance. Any melee is literally perfect. And on top of this, you can run melee vortex if you like to pull enemies in, so the cooldown for Spectral Spirit is easier, or you can use Nautilus, or you can use the Scythes like I mentioned earlier on in the video. Or, as boring as it is, I have to admit, melee influence is absolutely, once again, broken with Spectral Spirit once it's activated, because it will spread doom to all the nearby enemies when melee influence kicks in, meaning every enemy is going to get affected by this huge bonus. And of course, when the cooldown kicks in, because you're killing tens of enemies per second, that 25-second cooldown literally does not exist. It is disgusting. But I'm not really playing melee influence lately, so I personally don't use it. I just wanted to mention for those who do like it, and I have to admit, it is kind of crazy. It's a little bit nutty. But anyway, by far, the best build for Dagath is melees. She's absolutely amazing, and I've tried a number of melees with her, and it just works out every single time perfectly. Her signature melee is also very, very good. I can recommend that. Here is the Wrathful Advanced build. I've found this to be the perfect balance of tankiness with huge buffs and everything in between. Just remember that I do have the 3 Tower Force purple shards doubling the melee damage. You can go 5 if you'd like to go all in on the setup, but yeah, that's for those who really like this playstyle. And now this leads me further onto a even better synergy with Dagath, one that I am incredibly familiar with and I am a huge advocate for. Melee afflictions and blast is absolutely a perfect match with Dagath. How this works, and the crux of how the synergy works, is we use melee afflictions, obviously. Mod for blast on melees that work well with afflictions as a whole. You want to focus on melees that kind of just proc afflictions as much as possible, because the more you do that, the more you will feel the synergy, take into effect, and it just doesn't get better than this, honestly. Here we take the Dirigo with this build right here. We take the Tazakor and mod for blast with a few other elements just to increase our status chance. The Tazakor is really nice for this since you can spread multiple procs to nearby enemies easier, and your clones will also help with duplex bond, and you have arc coil as well, just constantly spreading blast procs. And how this synergy pretty much works is you want your companions to proc a minimum of 4 blast procs as quick as possible, so that when you come in with your melee and you proc afflictions, you basically apply 6 blast, which instantly causes the max stack explosion, and then it's just huge damage. Like, it is so satisfying. Enemies literally pop. A few suggestions that I love to use with the synergy is the Techo Prime, by far the best weapon, because it's one of the only melee weapons that actually proc melee afflictions off of a slide attack, since the slide attack actually picks enemies up. Doorclave, which is Dagath's signature weapon. The dual cleavers are also quite fun, and also just anything. These are my main 3 weapons that I use for the synergy, or any scythe or weapon that has a good stance with afflictions is perfect. You don't need to mod for blast on your weapon if you don't want to. It just helps with the blast damage if you want to scale it a bit more. You can actually go for another element if you'd like. If you guys would like different weapon suggestions, I could say the Pennant, the Spinnerex, the Scythed for grouping, and any crit based damage over time primary weapon or weapon in general. And I'm being deliberately vague because that's how good Dagath is with all of these weapons and everything, and how good she is as a weapons platform. This leads me onto the problem with Dagath and Phantom Wrath. Phantom Wrath is procced when enemies are affected by doom and damage. We know that it's a damage redirection mechanic. Problem is, you never really get to experience it, so it's for the most part redundant. The only time you experience it is with tougher targets, and even then with the damage attenuation on new enemies nowadays, it's still just okay. With older targets though, like Thraxes and Demolishers, this mechanic still works incredibly well, and I'm yet to discover the best way of abusing this, but still, for 99% of your gameplay, you won't experience it because you one-shot enemies anyway. One thing I can suggest is to make sure to stack up dots like Slash and Toxin to build up the damage in the time frame before the size come down for the tougher targets that you do come up against. Phantom Wrath as a mechanic needs a rework in my opinion. That is, or maybe even an augment, dare I say. I don't really like augment being just a band-aid fix, but it is. I prefer a rework. All I'm trying to say is that is pretty much Dagath's only one problem. For my final thoughts on Dagath, she's brilliant, she's slept on, she offers many different playstyles, and she's just forgotten, which sucks. She's not a bad Warframe. She's just overshadowed by so many other frames, and for no reason, really. It's not like there's so many other frames that can do it better. Yes, there of course will be frames that can do it better, but it's not like, oh, she's redundant. I think people just kind of forgot about her, and I wanted to bring her into the light a little bit because there are so many other frames that just seem to overshadow her, but I think people just need to have a look at her again and play her again. She is brilliant. And of course, a huge shout out to our channel members who help and support the channel. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. I cannot thank you enough. Go give Dagath a go. Bye. You won't regret it.
Thank you.